So I want to thank our sponsor again, Spot On Fence. If you're looking for any type of invisible fence system, I'd encourage you to check out Spot On Fence. We do use their system and are trying out some new features on one of their collars that'll be coming out in the next few months. We'll be testing that probably in the next week or two with them. I also want to thank the Sheep and Goat Predator Management Board for providing funding for the program. We should have time today, even with the technical difficulties. If anybody has any questions they want to post in the chat, feel free to go ahead and do that. I've just got one producer posted question, although it is fairly long today. So Angela Campbell sent me a fairly lengthy post. She has 10 guard dog pups, and due to the female dog having a bunch of complications and some emergency surgeries, and then eventually an emergency C-section, Angela ended up having to raise the pups by hand and feed them by hand. And so consequently, the female dog never really had a chance to bond with the puppies, and they're kind of more attached to people. She does need to sell them, she says, but she wants to start bonding them with livestock and getting them used to it. Their current ranch setup, they don't really have any good bonding pens at this point, and without the female dog to teach or help protect the puppies, she's had to kind of keep them away from most of the livestock. The pups are about 12 weeks old. They have been exposed to, but not left with, poultry, sheep, goats, pigs, cattle, and some horses. Most of the interaction with the larger animals is through a shared fence line, which is good. I would definitely recommend that, at this age, especially with the cattle and the horses. And she says all but 2 of the pups show really good guarding instincts. They would rather be, but the problem is, as I mentioned earlier, they'd rather be with people than livestock because they've been raised, basically from birth with people. Both parents are working dogs on their ranch. They patrol over 4,000 acres with 3 other dogs. And so she wants these, pups to go to a good working home, and she doesn't feel like they're suited to be pets. And so I would agree with you on that portion of it, Angela. Angela's got 3 questions, and so I'll kind of go through those one at a time. The first question she had is, what would be the best method of integrating the pups with stock, and how does she choose what class of livestock to partner each pup up with? Well, what I would say, Angela, is, dogs have favorites, and I'm not quite sure why. I used to think, it was maybe where the dogs came from, and that's why when they got to us, they had favorites for, sheep or goats, or a specific type of sheep or goats. But that's not really the case, and so I'm not sure why dogs still have favorites. I don't know if it's a smell thing or what it is just yet. Hopefully at some point we'll be able to answer that question. But what we do is put our dogs in with a variety of species, and so we generally have 4 to 6 head in a bonding pen. We'll have wool sheep, hair sheep, meat goats, and Angora goats, because those are the 4 species that are very predominant in our area, and that's where our dogs go. Kind of in west central Texas. The other thing I would do is, since you have poultry, people struggle a lot of times to find a good guard dog that's been bonded with poultry, and so I would, I know you don't have some good bonding pens, but it doesn't take a lot. It's just something to kind of keep the dogs in. So you could put some hot wire around the base. That should keep the puppies in and also teach them some fence respect. And so if you get a pen set up like that, try to put a small cage or another smaller pen inside of your bonding pen area for some of those poultry species that you've got. That will help bond and acclimate the dogs to the poultry when you're not there. When you are there, if you're cleaning the pen, feeding livestock, training the pups, socializing the pups, and that kind of thing, let the poultry out. And that way they can interact with the pups, but under supervision. It's really easy for guard dogs to break poultry. And then, you have to just kind of have an idea that you're going to have some birds that are going to probably be sacrificed during the training process. So, if any of the ducks, chickens, or turkeys that you've got are some of your favorites, or they're your kids' 4-H or FFA projects or something, I wouldn't put those into the bonding pen. Because it's likely that some of them, like I said, may be sacrificed during the training process. It is really critical at this point, since the pups are already 12 weeks old, that you get them bonding with livestock. That bonding window opens at about 5 weeks of age, and it closes about 14 weeks of age, so you've still got some time, but every day is counting right now. And it can make the difference between, having a well-bonded dog and having a dog that isn't bonded well. And then, we all kind of know what happens when they're not bonded well. Then they start roaming as adults, and they get hit by cars and shot and poisoned and trapped and that kind of thing. So, as soon as possible, get a bonding pen set up, get those dogs out there with some livestock, so that bond can happen. One quick thing too on that is make sure that you rotate the livestock that are in your bonding pen. You don't want the puppies bonding to specific animals. You want them bonding to species. So what we do is kind of rotate the livestock every 3 to 4 weeks in the bonding pens, and that way, there's always new animals coming in, and so the dogs are having to get used to a new set of animals, but they're still bonding to them as a species. Angela's second question, she wanted to know at what age would be best to market and sell the pups. Are they more likely to be successful guard dogs if they have a solid foundation and are sold as adolescents or now as puppies? Well, most of the time, Angela, most breeders sell their dogs, as a weaned pup, because there's a lot of extra expense into keeping, that dog to be an adolescent and to be sold as a what's called a bonded pup, which is usually a dog that's 8 to 10 months old. The problem with your pups is you're just starting to get them bonded at 14 or at 12 weeks of age. And so, obviously they're overly socialized. But during this time, you probably need to start doing some leash training, some tether training, put them in a truck once in a while, driving them around the pasture, starting to do some grooming, if they're long-haired dogs. And so all that kind of stuff is going to take some time. That's going to push you past that normal window of selling the pups from, say 8 to 12 or 14 weeks. So, my recommendation to you would be to sell these dogs, as a bonded pup. You're going to have a little bit more, time into them and some more money with feed and, shots and that kind of thing. But, I think that's probably best just based on, where you are in the bonding situation and the training time and things like that. So that would be my recommendation to you. Her next question is when bonding them, should she rotate them through the livestock class? Or are they potentially going to guard or pick one, chicken versus sheep, or ducks versus pigs or something? Again, just rotate the classes of animals through. If you can't have them all in there at the same time, like say one pig and one sheep and one goat, and, a couple chickens, a couple ducks or whatever, leave them in there for several days at a time, and then leave a couple of the say leave the sheep and goats in there all the time, and then bring in a pig, bring in some ducks, bring in some turkeys, and kind of rotate them around, but still leave poultry in general, that poultry class, in there all the time. I would definitely leave the sheep and goats in there the entire time that you bond the dogs, because that's going to be your biggest market, that and poultry. Not very many people use guard dogs for pigs. More and more people are starting to use them for cattle, especially up in the panhandle, but it's still not as many as use them for sheep and goats. So that would be my recommendation. She also says here, any and all help and guidance would be much appreciated at this point. Should I also point out that this wasn't an intentional breeding. The neighbor had an intact male, and without informing anybody in the area, set him loose, and apparently, this intact male sired 4 litters in 2 months, kind of across the area wherever Angela's at. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Angela. The biggest thing I would tell you is, and this is to all producers out there, unless you're breeding, dogs and something about breeding livestock guardian dogs, I would strongly encourage you to, spay or neuter all your dogs. There's hasn't been a single, research study that I've seen yet that looked at, sexes of dogs, guarding ability, and intact versus fixed dogs, they all showed there's no difference whatsoever. And so I would highly recommend spaying and neutering all your dogs. That way you don't end up with, unintentional litters like this. And this obviously was definitely an unintentional litter, not even with your own guard dogs, by a neighbor's guard dog. So, I think that's about everything. I think I got through all the questions that she had. Let me just double check here. Yeah, I think that's about it. See if there's any other questions in the chat. So Sarah Smith asked she'd like to see the comparison between the collar systems we're running. I did a kind of an initial comparison, Sarah, a few months back. You can find that on our YouTube channel. I think it's under like Invisible Fence Collar Review or something like that. So there is an initial comparison there, and you can find that on our YouTube channel. I have been meaning to do an updated version of that. But what I can kind of briefly tell you, and if you get my blog each month, I did do a comparison in the blog a couple months back between the Invisible Fence brand system that we use and Spot On system. Just kind of quickly here, since we've got a little bit of time, both systems have some pros and cons. The Invisible Fence brand system that we use at the center is GPS based. There's no wire buried or anything like that. And it is their older system. They just came out with a brand new system that's very similar to Spot On Fence's collar, which we did get some samples, and those are out on a dog right now, as a matter of fact. So hopefully within the next month or so, I can give you some updates on the new Invisible Fence brand collar. And then Spot On Fence is also coming out with some new features for their current collar. So we're going to be trying those out as soon as the kind of the beta version is available to us in the next 2 or 3 weeks. We have some additional collars from them coming as well. But kind of back to the pros and cons is, the Invisible Fence system that we currently use, is roughly about $3,000 for them to set up and install for you, and there really isn't much of an installation. Each of their collars runs about $900, and the two drawbacks that I see is one, the cost. Two, their current collars that we're using, each collar can only store 3 pastures, and those pastures have to touch. So if you've got more than that, then you have to buy another collar, for instance. Okay. Now, the one big plus on the Invisible Fence brand collars that we're using right now is, we get about 2.5 days of battery life out of it. Okay. The Spot On system, they're much cheaper. I think you can find them now for about $900. And if you get the tracking version of it, it's like another $100. So I think it's like maybe an even $1,000 for that. And then there's like some kind of monthly, or I think it's an annual fee for the tracking service portion of it. So that's definitely a plus. You can get an Invisible Fence collar. It does have the tracking ability, so if the dog leaves the geofence, you're going to get a notification, and it's going to be constantly tracking that dog, and it'll tell you if the dog comes back or not. So it's cheaper than Invisible Fence brand. Also, with Spot On system, they have an app. You draw all the pasture boundaries in the app, and I don't know, I think you can have like 30 or more pastures or something like that. You can also have exclusion zones. So if you've got a pasture, and in the middle of the pasture is your barn, and you don't want the dog to go into the barn area, you can draw like a secondary geofence around the barn, and it'll keep the dog from going in there. The biggest drawback on the current Spot On Fence collar is the low battery life. It only lasts about 21 hours, and then you have to pull the collar off and recharge it. Excuse me. So kind of what my suggestion has been to folks right now is, you could buy 3 spot-on fence collars for what it's going to cost to just have the Invisible Fence brand system installed. And so, but again, the battery life is short, so you got to have the extra collars to constantly be swapping out. Now, the newest Invisible Fence brand collar that's just come out, that's kind of a copy of Spot On Fence's collar. I've seen some different, pricing on Facebook, but I think those are around $400, so they're quite a bit, cheaper. Now, I don't know anything about battery life because, like I said, we just got those collars in our hands, and we just put them out on a dog last week. So, we're still collecting data on that, and will be for at least the next month or so before I'm going to be able to tell you, like, okay, yeah, the collar does last 2 or 3 days, or sometimes it lasts a day, and sometimes it lasts 5 days. I don't have any answers for you on the new Invisible Fence collar. But that's kind of a brief, rundown between Spot On Fence's current collar and the little older version of Invisible Fence brand's collar. So Paul had a question, if I can go over the seminar that's going to be on the 19th, where to watch, price, etc., and will it be posted on YouTube? Paul, all of our videos are always free, at least, into the foreseeable future. There has been some, debate at the university level on whether, we should be charging for some of this information or not. But currently everything's free. So you don't have to worry about any, that price for those videos or anything like that. It will be posted as long as Facebook cooperates, unlike today. It will be posted to Facebook for you to watch live, and afterwards it will be posted to our YouTube channel. Basically, Dr. Julie Young, I'm not exactly sure what she's going to be presenting. I'm assuming, just kind of based on the title, but it's going to be about the large project that she conducted in the last couple years in the western states. So it was in Washington, Oregon, Montana, Wyoming, and I think part of Idaho. She's going to be going over the results, I would think, of that project. And they tested several different guard dog breeds. Kangals were tested, Crockchans were tested, your typical, like white guardian dogs, and then there was a fourth one. Gosh, I can't remember what the fourth breed was, but they put out about 80 dogs, and they collected some data on those dogs at those producers' ranches, and it was done over a few years. So that's what she'll be talking about. Where to sign up for that, we do have an event posted on the Facebook page. You can also go to the AgriLife Center in San Angelo's website, go onto the event section, and you can sign up for the webinar there as well. And so that'll be on the 19th at 3 p.m. Let's see, Jennifer Sanson. How would I suggest a producer to get a new dog to travel out of a barn with the sheep? Okay, the dog's kind of barn sour, she says, like a horse. She suggested shutting the barn up and penning the dog where the sheep and other dog away from the barn. Well, that's probably what I would recommend, Jennifer. Yeah, you need to just definitely get the dog and the sheep out of the barn altogether. I would close it up. Hopefully there's no, depending on how, old the barn is. I know a lot of times the doors, get worn out because they start to sag and they drag on the ground and there's holes here and there. I would make sure that, all that kind of stuff is fixed because, every guard dog that I've been around, they know where all the holes in the fences and barns and things like that are. And so if they want to get away from you or go someplace, they will, they'll go to that hole that they know is there. And so, but I would definitely recommend that, and if you have to, I'd even string a strand of hot wire around the base of that barn, and that'll definitely keep your guard dog from going back in there. They'll only hit that thing once or twice and figure out the barn's not the place to be anymore. So hopefully that answers your question there and gives you some help, Jennifer. I think that's all the questions that we have for today. If anybody else comes up with something here real quick, feel free to post that in the chat. I did have one quick question from a producer, and I didn't cover it today because I just answered her. But the question came up for this month's Q&A about what we do to keep our livestock waterers for the livestock and the dogs in the bonding pens free of ice during the wintertime. First, we get maybe, a week or a week and a half of bad weather generally in San Angelo every year. It kind of can vary from, Christmas through, I would say, the end of February. But obviously, like I said, it's not that entire time, but it kind of travels in there. It depends on how the storms kind of come through. And so during that time, if we do have a bunch of ice and extremely cold weather, we just go out every day and we break up the ice and pull it out of the troughs and make sure that the dogs and the livestock in the bonding pens have fresh water to get to. Our bonding pens are out in the pastures, and so we don't have access to any sort of electricity to run any type of trough heaters or anything like that. So anyway, that hopefully that helps somebody. Like I said, we just kind of have to do it the old-fashioned way. So well, I don't see any other chats stuff coming up, so hopefully that answered everybody's questions. If you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to me at the AgriLife Center. I'm more than happy to respond either through Facebook or email, phone message. Heck, even I'm getting YouTube messages now. Here's a last second post here. Sarah said, she was hoping there was some magic solar water heater. Yeah, we haven't found one of those, Sarah. Sorry. If anybody does know of some type of solar-powered water heater for troughs, boy, we would definitely be interested in it at the center. That's for sure. Here's another question that just came in from Lane Anthony. He's got an 8-month-old Great Pyrenees that will not stop climbing fences to get to other sheep and our older livestock guardian dogs. They've tried harnesses, collars. She will not stop. Any suggestions? Let's see. He said climbing the fences. Okay. Well, yokes work really well if they're digging or, if you have poor fences and the dogs are going through that. So I wouldn't recommend a yoke for you, Lane. One thing that you can try, and it doesn't really stop them from climbing the fences. I've got, I guess, 2 recommendations for you. One, you could try like a tire drag. Now, if you're going to do a tire drag, make sure it's not like a large, truck tire or something. You need a very small car tire or like a garden tractor tire, something like that. Or depending on where you are, snowmobile tread I've heard is phenomenal to use for a drag. I have yet to been able to find any. I keep forgetting to look on Facebook Marketplace for some older used snowmobile tread. The other thing you can do too is take the section out of a middle section out of a plastic chemical barrel and put that on a chain. Like I said, it doesn't really stop them from jumping the fence, but once they climb the fence, usually whatever is on the end of the chain drag doesn't go with them, and so they will be stuck there until you come and put them back on the side that they're supposed to be. The other thing that I would recommend, and I'm not sure if you've tried this or not, but again, going back to hot wire or an invisible fence collar. The hot wire is definitely a lot cheaper, and I lost a catalog that I just picked up recently, but there is a company out there that still makes the old, really long extensions for hot wire. It's like a metal arm, and it's kind of shaped like it's got kind of a V shape with a loop at one end and an insulator on it, and you run the hot wire through that, and it creates about I think they have some varying sizes still, but it's a 12 or 18 inch lead kind of like off the fence, and it hangs over almost like something you'd see like at a prison, or some type of security fence that has the arms, at the top with the barbed wire. They make it's just out of a piece of solid metal bar, this kind of V shape with a loop at the end, and you can attach that on the top of your wood fence, and it keeps the dog from being able to jump over it. So obviously you want angled into the area wherever the dog is at, and you don't want them leaving. So that's one thing that you could try. Like I said, those insulators, extended insulators, are still available. I wasn't sure for a while, but I did see some in a catalog just a couple weeks ago, and I've misplaced it, or I would let you know who was making those still. But one of the companies is still making them. I'm sure you can find them online. So those are the two things, and I said again, like an invisible fence collar. So I guess there's probably 3 different things that you could try, to keep the dog in the area that you want. So hopefully that helps. So any other questions today, folks? Well, I don't see anything else coming in here. Again, thanks everybody for tuning in. Sorry we had some technical difficulties at the beginning. I'm not sure what happened with that, but we got through all the questions and comments, and so I appreciate everybody logging in here today. Again, I do want to thank our sponsor, Spot On Fence, for sponsoring the Q&As every month, and also the Sheep and Goat Predator Management Board for providing funding. Again, don't forget to sign up for our webinar. I'm pretty excited personally to be able to have Dr. Julie Young present for us. She has been if you don't know her, she's been a researcher for many years, and she's done a lot of guard dog research out of the Utah State University, and also through like the sheep experiment station up there, and all through kind of the western states, with several other professors in that kind of general area. So don't forget to sign up for that on September 19th. Our next Q&A will be on Wednesday, October the 2nd, at 2 p.m. We are doing them on Wednesdays because I've got graduate classes on Tuesday, Thursdays this semester. So they'll be on Wednesdays at least through Christmas, and they'll be at 2 o'clock also. So thanks